Hi, it's Angie McMann, and I am so excited. I have Emily Jane Buehler here. She's got a new book coming out. So, coming out March 20th is The Village Maid.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and I'm excited for the book too.
They're steamy fairy tales, aren't they? Is that how you would describe them?
Yes, I originally was saying fairy tales, but I've realized that in the romance world that means fairy tale retellings, and that is not what I'm writing. So mine are more like they're original stories in a fairy tale like setting, but without a lot of violence or battles or really dark stuff happening. There's action and adventure, but nobody's ever in danger for that long. So if you're just looking for a nice escape with magic and fun and steamy love scenes, that is what my books are about.
So, let's talk about the two main characters. So, we have Aviana, who used to be a courtier, and Thorn, who is a village printer. So tell us a little bit about that.
Aviana was actually the original motivation for the story. She appears in book one as a courtier, and I didn't really like her very much. She's kind of mean. She's always picking on the protagonist of book one and just sort of petty. And so when it came time to write book two, and I was just brainstorming ideas, and I thought, well, it would be interesting to take a character I didn't like and try to see their point of view and see if I could come to like them. And, in real life, that's something I should probably work on, of trying to see other people's points of view and see what might be going on behind the scenes for them. So it just started as a challenge. And then, I thought about her backstory, what made her the way she is, what her goals might be, and then, of course, how she's going to change over the course of the book to be a better person and either achieve her goals, but then that's not quite what happens because she realizes her goals were sort of misplaced, and what she's really looking for is um, like a bigger thing.
Sometimes what we want is not what we need.
Right, right. So she's really focused on finding a husband as if that's the only solution to her current woes. She has been demoted from a courtier and she's now a laundry maid and she's working all the time and struggling to pay the bills. And so she has really always thought that her only value came from her appearance, and she's trying to work that to find a man to take care of her. But over the course of the story, she learns that she has other skills and there are other, she's valuable as a person, not just because of how she looks. And she realizes that it's not exactly a husband she wants, it's sort of a secure home and family. And then Thorn is, he developed just because I was thinking about what she was focused on finding, and he's very different from that, but ends up being a really good fit for her. And I think I was just thinking about how so often what we think we want in a partner is not what works really well, and that happened for me when I met my partner. He was just really different than what I had been looking for or expecting. So I liked thinking about that idea. But Thorn is very quiet and reserved, but he's always helping people. He owns the print shop in the village, but he's a fairy and he's only lived in the village since the revolution in the last book kind of gave the fairies more freedom. And so he's also, he's helping all the villagers learn to read because they didn't have that available to them in the previous kingdom. They were, just working all the time and paying lots of taxes. So he's just a good person and he's helping everybody. And he has been a friend to Aviana and starts to become more. And she keeps resisting it and focusing on what she thinks she wants, while her friendship with him grows in the background.
I think that's what I loved most about these two characters is that she was very relatable because she's just trying to get by. What I adore about Thorne is he's the good guy. I noticed that you had a repeat character, Merkel.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Um, a friend who read book one, she said to me, I feel kind of sorry for Merkel at the end of it, and I just hated him so much. So I think maybe I was also trying to give him a second chance, and let the reader maybe see him in a different light, because I maybe had given him a fair shot in book one, although he is pretty awful in book one. So yeah, he's kind of here as a little bit of comic relief. But I will say that he shows up again in book three, and actually has kind of some resolution in book three, because book three, well, I don't want to spoil things. So yeah, book three is about his people a little bit more. So, but it is funny that he kind of kept showing up in the books for a while. So
As the reader, I appreciated getting to see karma come back on someone who wasn't so nice. That's the way I saw it.
yeah, he I enjoyed making him be the like the butt of the jokes and kind of pathetic in this book.
Do you want to give us a little bit, give us a little taste of how the story goes?
Yeah, so let's see. We start with Aviana. She's working as a laundry maid, and she is aware, she feels like time is passing, and all her nails are broken, and she feels like she's getting old and she's wearing out, and so she feels this kind of desperation to get settled, and she thinks that she missed her chance while she was at the castle court. She should have snagged someone while she was there, um, and she didn't, and she wasted an opportunity. So she's going out to the pub every night and finding a different guy to hook up with, trying to find someone who can turn into this husband she wants. And one thing I should mention is that I was trying really hard to write a society that doesn't have all the weird gender norms that our society has. So I wanted it to be perfectly normal for women to be having sex with men the same way it is for men to have sex with women. So I tried really hard to normalize that. And I know readers coming from our world, it's so hard not to bring all our stuff to that. But anyway, I tried to make that just not a big deal for her at all. But she is really focused on finding a husband, and she has this friend Thorn who she runs into in chapter two, and they always have fun and talk, and he's always trying to help her out. But she just sees him as kind of a nerd, and she doesn't think he's very strong because he's thin and he doesn't like strut around the village. So she doesn't see him as like the attractive studly man who she has always thought she wanted. And let's see, she's got a mean girl who she lives with, and she's used to always being the mean girl who picks on others, and now she's getting it back. And so she, has these little cat fights with her housemates. Um, but the action kind of starts when she one of her housemates suggests that she come to the village dance, and she says, there's nice guys there, and they might be a little bit different than the guys you're meeting at the pub, and maybe they're also looking to settle down. And so she goes to the dance, and she sets her sights on this one guy who's handsome, and he's wearing fancy clothes, and then she gets a date with him. But as it unfolds, he ends up just being like totally dull, and he's not interested in who she is. He just wants to talk at her. So it kind of follows her, and Thorne stays in the picture. Like he helps her get ready for her date, and he's teaching her how to dance. And so there's a lot of interactions with them. But she's just like misplaced, um, where she's looking. And so um, that's kind of the setup, I guess. And then a bunch more stuff happens. So
Yes, indeed it does. What was your favorite scene to write?
there's some that are just really fun. Like The fairies in my books can communicate with animals, and so in this book, a lot of the animals are cats, and so I really enjoy writing the scene where like a cat shows up to do something just because it's really, I live with cats, and so it's really fun to get to take what I see every day and like put it down on paper, the way they act and stuff. There's one scene that's really special to me, and it's actually the first sexy love scene, because one of my goals when I started writing romance was that I really wanted the love scenes to be realistic, and a lot of what I read kind of struck me as too perfect. Like the guy always knows exactly what to do. And it's like, even if he's never been with this woman before, he somehow just knows exactly what she wants with no communication whatsoever. And nobody ever does anything that doesn't work out. So I kind of wanted to, to try writing a love scene where someone does something and it doesn't go over great. But that seemed like a challenge because I wanted to do it without ruining the moment. And so when I was writing the first love scene in this book, I have I just decided to try it, and I thought if it doesn't work, I can just delete it. But I have they're kissing, and then Thorne sticks his tongue in her mouth, and he can tell that she kind of like tenses up. And I figured her character is so used to just always going along with whatever the men want that she wouldn't stop him and say something. But he's perceptive and he can tell that she doesn't really like this. So he stops and they talk about it. And it was one of those moments where I felt like the characters kind of took over and I was just, typing, but it wasn't really coming from me, because they have this conversation and the conversation ends with, she's worried that he's going to be disappointed in her. And he says, oh, no, no, like, of course, if there's something you don't like, I want to know. You have to tell me. And then he says, besides, there's so many other places to stick your tongue. And he like squishes it in her ear or something like that. And it just kind of came out. And I was like, oh, like, it felt like I didn't ruin the moment. And so, and I think having people like communicating during a sex scene, it always, after I write it, I'm always like, I like it. Like it seems like it's a good thing and it doesn't seem to ruin the sexiness. And so, um, so that scene, I think, because it was the first time I tried to write something where it was like different than what I was used to reading and something not going smoothly, and I felt happy with how it turned out.
What actually makes this romantic fantasy is the fact that you have a man who actually listens. I said it.
Since I've set out to do this, I've actually encountered a few books where it happens. So, like recently, I've been reading all of Alexis Hall's books, and in Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake, in the final love scene, it was like exactly perfect where something happens and she doesn't like it, and they talk about it, and I was so excited, like, oh, maybe this is a new thing that lots of people are going to start writing love scenes that have more communication in them. So I'm hopeful.
What scene was the toughest to write?
Let's see. I think when I planned out this book, I had recently taken a class on conflict. And so I think I was very aware of having something trying to escalate in every chapter and keeping the conflict up. And so one of the things that happens is Aviana's parents show up in town, and it was difficult for me to write the scenes between her and her parents. I guess because I don't know, it just it felt like a part of the plot. Ugh, I don't know if this is a good thing to say. Felt like I just stuck it in there as more conflict. And I don't know. I think it worked in the end because she has some good conversations with her mom about what her past was like. So it ends up adding backstory. And then um, also the sort of resolution of her wanting a secure life, and her parents ultimately offer that. and she rejects it because she wants to stay where she is and keep working on things on her own. So I feel like it came together, but when I had first put it in there, um, it had just been something I brainstormed and stuck in there, and so the first draft of it was just like, I don't like this, and it felt tedious to me to write it, and then it needed to get reworked a lot before the final draft. So I would say that was a hard one, and I think also I always just enjoy writing the scenes between the heroine and the hero the most, and so he wasn't around for like the conversation with her mother, and that, I'm always like eager to get back to him, so I think that made it a little bit harder too.
Do you identify more with Thorn than you do with Eviana?
um I think so. I had tried to write her to be different from me because I realized, I had a lot of stories and drafts that had a heroine who seemed to be different parts of me coming out. So with her, I thought, well, it would be a fun challenge to just try to write someone who's very different from me. So I think maybe I came out more in Thorn, who's, he has interests that I have. I used to do a lot of printmaking and is kind of this quiet artist type and would never presume, to just ask her out or think she likes him, like he's trying to be perceptive and quiet. So, yeah, I would say I identify more with him than with her.
So let's get back to tell us about the bonus material.
Right. So, I'm very excited about this. I wanted to have something to give away on my website when people subscribe to my email list. And back when I was a kid, I used to always draw letters and alphabets. And I started thinking about how Thorn runs a print shop, and so maybe I could give away something, that was printed at his print shop. And in the Village Maid, when he teaches people reading and writing, he has an alphabet card, and it's, decorative letters of the alphabet. And so I decided to draw that, and I actually have it's right here. Here, just a second. I pulled out. I I pulled out this book I found in the college library at William and Mary, and I loved it so much that I mail ordered it from Dover. And so it's all historic alphabets. And I flipped through it for inspiration, and there were a lot of the French alphabets were illustrated with flowers. And so I wanted something that had to be, the letters had to be simple enough that someone learning to read could copy them, but I wanted to have a decorative background, and flowers and leaves seemed like a good fit for Thorn because the fairies are very nature based in my books, and they all have names of plants. So Thorn is a nickname for hawthorn. So I started drawing an alphabet, and some of the letters I sort of copied ideas from the book, but then I just started making them up. And so I have it right here. This is the final version of my alphabet, and you can get a copy of it on my website. So yeah, I drew it by hand in pencil and then inked them all in and scanned it in and uploaded it. So I'm really excited about that just because a lot of websites have short stories, and that's what I had. And I thought nobody has time for another short story, but I'd love to give away something that just makes me happy to look at, and so maybe some other people will appreciate it. And it's also related to the books and the characters. So yes, you can get that at my website, which is janebuehler.com.
Amazing map. Who did the map inside the book?
Oh, I did the map too. So yeah, I drew it by hand. Yeah, I used to have a lot more time for art. So when I have an art project, it's always really exciting. But I drew the map in the first book, and I thought about. I know there's computer programs to do it, but I just kind of like the idea of it being done by hand, more like handcraft. And then, of course, I had to modify it for this book, and it was like, oh, well, if it were on the computer, I could just tinker with it. Now I have to draw the whole thing again. But I zoomed in on the village for this book, so it ended up being a pretty different map. But yeah, I just enjoyed doing it by hand, so for now, I'll keep doing that.
I have to say, the whole book, from the cover to the inside to even it's visually appealing. The font that you used, the headings on it with the little there's things on it. It's decorated.
I wanted it to be, and I got a little bit braver with the second book, adding a little bit more to it. So,
Do you want to talk about your bread book?
yes, thank you. So, in 2021, I published a 15th anniversary edition of my bread book, Bread Science. So, here it is. It's hard to believe it's been 15 years, but I just wanted to do something to celebrate it. And I didn't really want to add a lot of content or make people who already had it feel like they had to buy a new edition. So I just got a nice new professional cover, and then I redid the editing inside because when I published it in 2006, I've learned a lot since then about book editing. So did a few changes like that. Where there was new content, what I did was I just added footnotes, and all of the updates are on my website, and that's my publisher website, which is twobluebooks.com, which is where my nonfiction is published. So anyone, even if they already have it, can go there, and there's a page that lists all the update information, and it's just things like there's been more research on sourdough in the past 15 years, and they used to think that the organisms that are in your sourdough starter originated from the location where the starter was made, and that is generally not believed anymore. Um, Most people think that they originate based on the flour you're using and the conditions that you're using when you create it. So, like what temperature your house is. And there's now actual research where like there's a lab here in North Carolina where they had people all over the world send in sourdough starters, and then they tested them and identified which microorganisms were in them, and they published a map. So it's like the whole world, and you can click on any sourdough starter and see which yeasts and bacteria are in it. So there were changes like that that I wanted to recognize. So I added footnotes, but yeah, I'm very excited about the new edition. So thank you for asking. Self publishing was a lot different in 2006. So I'm glad it has developed to where it is now because it does a lot for so many people. So
Well, it looks like Chapel Hill Magazine recognized you. You were under a section called Bookin' It, so congratulations on that.
thank you. And I knew it was coming, because I had provided them with the information. But when I got it and I opened it, and I think they have me right next to another famous Hillsborough, well, another famous. They have me right next to a more famous Hillsborough author, Alan Gurganis, and that was like, oh my god! So that was really exciting.
You made it. When did you feel like an author for the first time? Imposter syndrome is always rampant in this field.
Right. I think it goes up and down. And some days I do feel like one, and then other days I still don't, and I still feel like yeah, like an imposter who's putting books out into the world and trying to make it. But yeah, so I think it's a constant struggle to feel like an author. But since I quit my day job, I've been writing more regularly, and I think that helps a lot because it's something I do either writing or working on the business aspects of it. Like every day something is getting done, and that kind of makes it more real, I think. Like, yes, I do work as an author every day. So
Well, I'm rooting for you to be a household name. I think your books are amazing. I love your characters. I love the way you turn it on its head what society expects and what it's beautiful. You write beautiful stories, and I'd like to see more characters like you write and realistic and what we should want as opposed to what society tells us we should want as women. So bravo. Bravo.
thank you. Thank you so much.
So let's hear it one more time. Where can we find your things? Where can we find your nonfiction, and where can we find the Village Maid out on March 20th?
So my nonfiction, you can find all the links at twobluebooks.com. And The bread science I sell myself, so I have printed copies and I ship them, and that is the best way to get it. It is also posted places as a print on demand version. I did that because I get a lot of orders from non-US countries, and the shipping is just outrageous. And I figured if I made a print on demand version, hopefully people in other countries could order it and pay less shipping. In America, it will be a little bit more expensive. And my second book, which is the memoir of my cross country bicycle trip, is called Somewhere and Nowhere, and that also is that's only available by print on demand. But all the links to Amazon Bookshop and then the different ebook retailers are all on twobluebooks.com. And then with the romance, I have it available as an ebook or as a paperback through print on demand, and all the links are at janebuehler.com. So I like to offer the option of supporting kind of the more independent retailers, so you can pick whoever you like best.
I was able to read Somewhere and Nowhere. I loved that book. That was so deeply satisfying. This was actually your story. This was your experiences, right? There was no fiction in this. This was an actual account. And I felt like I was on that bike next to you. I cried when you were frustrated. I wanted to jump in there and help you and to watch you grow and get so strong. I would never ever in a million years have taken that trip, and you did it. And I'm blown away. You're so kind and sweet and gentle, but you're a fierce warrior. You are actually a fierce warrior. For anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching this, you need to read that book, Somewhere and Nowhere, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming again and telling us about your things. And I'm excited to follow your career because you were doing it. I'm watching you. I'm watching you go into a big star. You're doing this. And you heard it here first. Thank you for being here, Emily, and we're here for you, and we're going to keep reading, keep writing for us.